I just came back home after being missing for 15 years. Part 1. Hello, my name is Phil, and I am 19 years old. Yesterday, my mother and father saw me for the first time in 15 years. It would have been an amazing moment had I not been lying on the front yard of their house, blindfolded, with my arms and legs tied together. I woke up this morning to our house filled with all of our close family members and a couple of reporters. A police officer showed up at around 3 p.m., but he told us he would just wait around till everyone left. The reporters tried to get information out of me, but I was not in the mood to give them any information. My aunt and uncle asked me if they hurt me, but before I could tell them no, another reporter started to bombard me with questions. Annoyed, I left the living room and sat in the kitchen for the next hour. Everyone left except the police officer around 4 p.m. He asked me if he could speak with me in private. We went to the kitchen and took our seats at the dining room table. He took out a notepad, and with a forced smile on his face, he told me to call him Matt. So, Matt, I honestly don't know who took me or where I was. That's fine, Matt said. I just have a couple of questions. How many other people were with you? Well, in total, around 25. When I left, there were around 17, I replied. All males? Or were there any females? Matt asked me. All males, I said. What was the general age group? Matt asks me. No one was under 4 or over 20. I replied. Did the people that took you hit anyone? Matt asks me. Not that I know of. They never laid a hand on me. They did shoot anyone that tried to leave the house. 4 tried to escape while I was there. 1 survived the gunshot and returned to the house the next day. He never said another word to any of us after that. A couple of people were found dead the next morning after they didn't follow a rule, but we never saw them get killed. Not even the person staying in the room with them would notice when they came into the room or how the person was killed. They? Matt asks. How many people were there? I only saw 2 on guard at a time, but the people seemed to change all of the time. Can you describe what the place looked like? Matt asks me. It was a house, a really big house. Not very fancy, but it had around 12 rooms. We all had our names written on a whiteboard next to our specified room. Our fridge was always stocked with enough food for all of us. We had a TV in the living room, but we could never find any channels that worked on it. Each of our rooms had 2 beds and 2 small dressers, which contained only 3 of the same outfits. We had a laundry room too, with a washer and a dryer, but they would only work on Thursday. 3 of the same outfits? What was the outfit? Matt asks me. It was a plain white t-shirt and blue pants. Everyone wore the exact same thing. One 18-year-old kid used blueberries to dye his shirt blue, but the next day I found him lying on his bed, dead. He had blueberries and bits of his blue t-shirt in his mouth. No one tried to change up after their clothes after him. How many people died while you were there? Matt asks me. I know of 9 people that were killed. 14 people left the house along with me, but I don't know if the rest just went back to their house like I did. Could you ever look outside of a window and see what was around you? Matt asks me. I stared outside of the window countless times. Sometimes I would see a person walking around the house with a gun, but other than the people, all I could see were countless rows of trees. They stretched so far back and wide, I could not see anything else. Did anyone ever come inside of the house? Matt asks me. They would come inside to pick up the person that was ready to leave the house. 2 people would come inside and grab the person that was leaving. They would have 2 pieces of rope and a black blindfold. They would tie his arms and legs together and put the blindfold over his eyes. After that, they would carry the person into the wall of trees. Did they ever show their face? Matt asks. No, never. They would wear monkey masks when they came in. None of us ever had the guts to take the masks off any of the people. Well, thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. I'll contact you back if we have any other questions, or if we make any new developments. You're a brave man. Please let us know if you find or remember anything new. After Matt left, I headed upstairs to my bedroom. I passed by my parents' room and heard them quietly talking inside. I put my ear up to the door and heard my father talking to my mother. Don't worry, my father said. This was part of the program. You will come back for 5 days to live with us, and after that, they will get rid of him and make it look like a suicide. This is the only way they can make it as least suspicious as possible. I rushed to my room and quietly closed my door. I thought about calling Matt, but I really want to figure this out. I have 5 days. Part 2. This morning, I woke up to the smell of bacon. I got out of bed, took a quick shower, and went to the kitchen. My mother gave me a smile and asked me if I was hungry. I gave her a nod and went to the dining room and sat down. My father came down a couple minutes later and stood next to me while breathing down my neck. When I looked up at him, he said sharply, "So, you're just going to sit around and not help your mom with the food? Do you think she's your personal cook?" I got up from my chair and walked into the kitchen while my father glared at me the whole way there. When I got to the kitchen, I heard my father scoff while he pulled a chair out. My mother shoved 3 plates of bacon, eggs, and grits into my arms and told me to put them on the table. I carried them in and placed the dishes down. I went back in, but my mother walked past me while saying "done" and put a fork beside each plate. No one spoke during the entire meal. I tried to think of something to say, but each time I thought of something, I would quickly dismiss it. I just wanted to see if they would somehow slip up and give me some information about my kidnappers and how they planned on getting rid of me. Once they finished eating, they got out of their chairs and walked back upstairs. I didn't get up until I heard the door to their bedroom close. I tiptoed upstairs and put my ear up to their door, but it was completely quiet. I kept my ear pressed to the door for a bit more until I felt something grab at my right foot. I yelped in surprise when I saw 2 fingers holding on to my toes. My father sneered. "You know it's impolite to spy in on your parents' room, don't you?" I pulled my foot away from his grip and raced downstairs. My father came out with a small handgun and pointed it in my direction. While I ran out the front door, I heard my father scream out to me, "Sooner or later they're going to get you again. You running away just makes our job easier." I didn't know where I was going, but I knew that I could not stay at my parents' house any longer. The next 2 hours was a mixture of running and walking countless steps, with sweat pouring down my shirt. Despite the cold weather, I finally found a welcome sight: a cop car. I flagged the car down and Matt's head popped out of the window. He didn't ask me any questions. He just told me to get in and explain when we got back to the station. The car ride was filled with silence, which made the next 10 minutes a perfect time to fully think about what the fuck was happening. My parents were definitely in on my kidnapping, but why would they send me away for 15 years, send me back home, and then kill me off? Why not just kill me off to begin with? As questions started to flood my head, I felt the car come to a stop. Matt took off his seatbelt and got out of the car. I followed his lead and walked into the station right behind him. We went to an office in the back of the building and took a seat in front of a desk. He sat down at the opposite end and, while crossing his arms, said, "Explain." I took a deep breath and told him all about my parents' conversation from the night before. How they talked about my kidnappers getting rid of me. Then I told him about the odd breakfast and almost getting shot down by my father when he found out I was trying to eavesdrop on them. He could tell that I was still shaking from the incident, so he asked me if my father said anything at all while he had the gun in his hands. After calming myself down, I told him that he told me sooner or later they were going to find me. Also, having me run away was just helping them out. Matt wrote down a couple of things in his notepad and asked me if I wanted a coffee or some water. I told him a glass of water would be fine. As he got up and started to head out of the room, I asked him if he could get an investigator or a detective or anyone that could help figure this out for me. With eyes filled with pity, he told me that since we were a small town, it would take some time to get anyone else down here. He gave me a little pat on my shoulder and walked out the door. He was gone for what seemed like hours. It started off as just an annoyance, but it quickly elevated to panic. I tried opening the door several times, but no matter how much I tugged at the door, it remained in the same exact spot. The world around me started to spin, and I fell to the ground. I woke up to the sound of a constant beep in the background. When I opened my eyes, I saw a young lady in a white outfit standing in front of me. She smiled widely at me and asked me if I was feeling all right. No, I really wasn't. The sight of her made me freak out. I started to tear at whatever was around me. I grabbed at the pole with my IV attached to it and launched it at her. She managed to avoid getting hit by the pole, and pain exploded in my right wrist. I tried to grab for her, but she hurried outside of the room. I got out of bed, but after a couple of steps, the dizziness came back, and I blacked out once more. It was dark when I woke up again. I saw gauze and tape around my right wrist, and the IV was now attached to my left wrist. I looked around the room and saw that there was a TV in the far right corner. A man was asleep in the next bed over, and there was a little controller attached to the wire on the bed. I found a little icon that looked like a nurse and pressed it. 2 minutes later, a man walked in the room with the same white outfit. A shudder ran down my spine, but I restrained myself. I asked him to turn on some cartoons for me. He showed me how to control the TV with the remote. Before he left, I asked him if I could use his phone to log down a daily log. He hesitated for a second, but handed it to me and told me that I have 2 hours with it before his shift is over. I was repositioning my pillow when I saw an envelope under it. The letter M was written on the front of the envelope. I opened the envelope and took a photo of when I was 4 years old out of it. On the back, there was a little note for me. You're only alive because I'm a cop. I wanted to kill you as soon as I talked to you for the first time. But we already have people that will do that for us. Show this letter to anyone if you want. They won't listen. You're the kid that just came back home after being missing for 15 years. The crazy and unstable kid. It's my word against yours, bud. I'm logging to you from the nurse's phone, but as I got to the middle of this log, I had the feeling of being watched. I looked out the window and saw my parents and Matt staring through the window of my room. When my eyes met Matt's, he mouthed the word, "Stay." Without Matt, who can I trust now?